So a lot of you probably know this already, but I am a huge Pokemon fan. I've been a fan of Pokemon my whole life, and I don't think that's ever going to change. I'm such a big fan, I've actually got every single main series Pokemon game to date, and I'm hoping to eventually get all the spin-offs as well. So you can imagine my pleasant surprise when I went to my local retro game store a little while ago and came across this. What is this game? This is called Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire. What is it? Well, this is basically the equivalent of Pokemon Bank these days. You put this game in your Gamecube, you hook up your Game Boy with your Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire game, and you use this to store all of your extra Pokemon that you don't need, up to 1,000 Pokemon. Well, that's just flat out convenient, right? So I wondered, this is a pretty weird game, isn't it? I mean, the only way this was available in North America was buying it at the Nintendo store in New York City in 2003. So there's not that many copies of this in existence, and I was thinking maybe I should make sure it works. So, glad you're all here. So, I want to make sure it works. I've put it in the GameCube. Let's fire it up and see how it looks. Ah! Okay, it's not that bad. I don't know what's wrong with my GameCube cables, but no matter what I try, I'm getting this vertical flickering effect no matter what happens. But beyond that, the picture quality just isn't that good. The problem with this is that we're using composite video. What's composite? Well, you know the old video cables where you got a yellow, white, and red going into the same box? Well, all of the video is being carried by that one yellow cable. The GameCube also supports S-Video, but my TV doesn't have that option, so I'm stuck using composite. Horrible, garish-looking, ugly composite. Well, it can't be helped. The GameCube is old, so it's supposed to look bad, right? We all know that's a lie. Let's just skip that and go into what the game looks like here. Alright, we got two different options. We've got Adventure, and we've got Pokemon Box. Well, let's go ahead and start with Pokemon Box. That is the whole reason that we bought this game, right? Was to experience Pokemon Box. So, what do we need to do in order to connect to Pokemon Box? Well, first we need Pokemon Box, got that, and then we need a Game Boy. And we need one of these GameCube to Game Boy adapters, so let's go ahead and plug it in, plug this into the second controller slot, and see what happens. Don't you just hate that? Turns out what's going on is that this is a third-party cable. This wasn't one officially made by Nintendo, so I've got to order an official Nintendo GameCube to Game Boy Advance cable in order to even play Pokemon Box, which I already dished out who knows how much money for. I know, you don't. And on top of that, the picture still looks terrible, but at least we can look at the title screen. We don't have to stand for this. This is atrocious. This is something that no one should have to look at, ever. And you know what? I'm not the only one who thinks so. There exists a big community online devoted entirely to taking retro video games and upscaling them to pristine, crystal clear picture for modern televisions. One such device is the open source scan converter, which I happen to own, and I use quite a lot with my Super Nintendo. You see this picture on the screen right now? That's not emulation. That's not from the Retron 5 or from the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. That is from a real Super Nintendo running a real cartridge of Yoshi's Island playing through the open source scan converter. It also works for Game Boy games too through the Super Game Boy attachment. And if you think that this is just an excuse for me to show off my complete Pokédexes in Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Silver, you're 100% right. I'm very proud of those accomplishments. Legit, baby. But it's not enough to just have the open source scan converter, you need the proper cables. A composite video going through that one yellow cable is never going to look any better than composite quality. I use cables called SCART, and the Gamecube does support SCART, but only in Europe, and I've got an NTSC Gamecube. It does have an extra port on the back for component cables, which are basically the analog equivalent of an HDMI cable, but those things go for outrageous prices on eBay because Nintendo only sold them for about a year, only on their website in the year 2001, when nobody needed component cables, so they go for quite a bit. I'm not about to dish out $300 just so that I can play my copy of Pokémon Box in higher quality. I need an alternative. So while I'm waiting on that new GameCube to Game Boy player adapter cable, whatever it's called, to come in the mail, I'm going to look at my options. We all know that's a lie because I'm recording this after I looked at my options, and here we go. My alternative, this GameCube HDMI adapter. It's called Hdmi Cube, and this is one of the lowest cost alternatives to component cables there is. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's definitely a well-priced alternative to having to dish out hundreds of dollars for something that is just way not worth it these days. I'm going to leave a link in the description for you to buy one of these if you want. Just full disclosure, they did not send me one for review. They're not paying me to say this. I just figured there's so few people out there talking about this specific HDMI variant for the GameCube, I would give them a shout out. So if any of them happen to watch this, thank you. It made my Pokemon Box experience much better. Let's take a look at Super Smash Bros. Melee, which I recorded using both composite and the new HDMI Cube adapter for my GameCube. As you can see, composite quality is not that good looking, even ignoring the flickering horizontal static, which I still don't know why it's there. Not to mention the input lag is bad too, because modern TVs, if they take composite at all, have to process it internally before it can spit out an image. So if you're a competitive Smash player, this is especially bad, and this is mostly why competitive players use CRT TVs instead of new HD TVs. I won though, somehow. That was weird. And this is Super Smash Bros. Melee running through the HDMI adapter instead. Just look at the difference. Apart from the loss of the vertical static, which I'm very thankful to no longer have to see that again, the picture just looks crystal clear. Mind you, this is still running at 480p, so it's not HD. This is not a way to take your old games and make it brand new as if it was made yesterday, but this does increase the clarity of what you see, and that's all that matters. The input lag is practically gone as well. I mean, I gotta admit, I'm not a professional Smash player, and that proves it, but the input lag sure seems to be pretty low to me. Alright, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and boot Pokemon Box with the new HDMI Cube adapter. See how it looks. Oh look, Pokemon Box actually supports progressive mode. That's pretty much the highest quality that a GameCube game can output. So for the 3 people in the world who happen to have Pokemon Box and either component cables or an HD alternative, yay, we get 480p instead of 480i. Terrific. Now, let's take a look at the actual game. Finally, my adapter works, so I'm able to actually play this game instead of only look at the static title screen, but the process of actually getting into the game is really long. First, you've got to choose which mode you want, then you got to turn on your Game Boy, then you have to wait for the screen to tell you that you're connected, then you turn off your Game Boy, and then you get into the game. Okay, that's pretty good for Pokemon Box and everything. Too bad I don't have 1,000 Pokemon to actually put in there right now. But there's another thing that Pokemon Box can do that I think is pretty cool. You can play Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on your big screen TV. About a year before the Game Boy player release, which can play every Game Boy game on your big screen TV. Whatever, let's check it out. Oh, we gotta go through the process all over again? Come on. Come on! Finally. So with the HDMI adapter, the game actually looks pretty good. I mean, this is never going to be as crystal clear as you can get running on a real Game Boy, but all things considered, it's not that bad. There's a lot more input lag here than I was expecting, but I'm willing to bet that's the emulator more than the HD cable. And the save process is even more convoluted than it is when you're saving in the actual box. You want to know how bad it is? Watch this. First, you've got to turn back on your Game Boy. Then you've got to wait. Then the game saves from the box to the Game Boy. Then you gotta turn back off your Game Boy. So yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say I'm not going to be playing Ruby and Sapphire using Pokemon Box on my TV to play through those games. And that's pretty much Pokemon Box in a nutshell. Just everything you saw there is pretty much all there is. Is it worth it? Well, not in the slightest. But I do have one more Pokemon game to knock out on my list of side games, spin-off games, for my collection. Super happy to have this. Super happy to have found it in the wild, too. It's always nice to find games when you're not looking for them. And I have this brand new HDMI adapter for my Gamecube. This episode was actually supposed to start out as a review for the HDMI adapter, but I figured you guys would probably be more interested in seeing Pokemon Box instead. So, that pretty much wraps this up. Thanks everyone for watching. I am going to go and question the last 3 weeks of my life that it took to make this video. It was time wasted.